sorry.
Is it only oranges, like just buying oranges?
We buy the oranges for this every Thursday.
Yeah.
But then for Puja next Tuesday, I mean, I can probably do the shopping on my way back from south for Tuesday.
You're going south?
I'm going across the border.
And no one told me.
I'm going yeah. I'll talk about it later.
Danger. What danger?
The frustrated Arya triple gem thus did I hear at one time. The Bhagawan was dwelling on massive altars mountain in Rajagriha together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagawan was absorbed in the concentration of the categories of the perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Arya looked upon the very practices of profound perfection of wisdom and behaved those categories on its indeed inherent nature. Then, through the power of the venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Arya Pasha, son of the living strength, who wishes to practice to the profound perfection of wisdom. He said that, and the Bodhisattva Arya said this to the venerable Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom, profound like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is not other than form, form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, affiliate, discrimination, composition of happiness and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are images without characteristics, unproduced, unseen, and is not without saying, not defeating, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness, is no longer feeling, no discrimination, no composition of factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, no phenomenon. There is no I element in soul enough to including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance in soul enough to including no aging and death and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no subject of origination, cessation, and power. There is no result of wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in perfection of wisdom. The mind without observation and without fear, having completely passed beyond every ability and point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in three times also manifestly completely awakened to answer possible, perfect, complete enlightenment, reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra that thoroughly classifies all suffering to be known as truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared, Tayata Om Gate 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 Tasam Gate Bodhi Soha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagawan arose to that concentration, including the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Well said, son of the lineage, it is like that, it is like that. One should practice a profound affection of wisdom, just as you have indicated, even to others rejoice. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Bodhisattva, Bodhisattva, Arya, Elimination, those surrounding him there in party on the world of God, students, and others. All these Buddhas were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. I prostrate the gathering of the Dakinis in the three chakras to abide in the holy yoga using space. By your powers of clairvoyance and natural illumination, look after practitioners like Mother Geshe. Akasama. Akasama Sattva Samaraya. Hayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Bodhi Soul. By the teachings of the three supreme jewels possessing the power of truth, may inner and outer hindrances be transformed, may they be dispelled, may they be pacified, in glorious soul. May all negative forces opposed to the Dhamma be completely pacified. May the host of 80,000 obstacles be pacified. May we be separated from harmful conditions to Dhamma. May all enjoyments be in accord with the Dhamma. And may there be auspiciousness and perfect happiness here right now.
Sangi Chudam Soji Chonala Chancha Patu Dami Pelsi Dagi Chishi Gibi Songi Jola Penche Sangi Drupala Sho Sangi Chudam Soji Chonala Chancha Patu Dami Pelsi Dagi Chishi Gibi Songi Jola Penche Sangi Drupala Sho Sanje Chudam Soji Chonala Chanchu Padu Dami Kyatsu Dagi Chishi Gibe Sanam Jolam Enshi Sanje Drupala Kan tuzi nizone dawa tamze pambichi tambichun denze bekodum kela chamse Good morning, everyone.
Hi, Dupin.
Siji shoga ko kulasi ko. Le chupatire, siji shoga ko kulasi asra.
So we have about 9 verses to finish the patience chapter.
Inda the three samdi simjen layan kubar chawa. Duty temperance. Duty temperance. The simjen layan. The sanji layan kubar chiku mase. And simjen layan kubar chiku is. Tenda three dasra. John Duku Tuji Dacha P. Dadi Dina. Hexami. Sunjingu Tun. The Dani. When the Dani Chishi.
We're going to pick up from verse 126. So it comes under the heading of, thus this shows in brief that we should respect sentient beings as well. So not only we should have a sense of respect for the Buddhas, but we should also respect sentient beings, as the text says. So looking at verse 126, it says, there is no doubt that those with the nature of compassion regard all these migrating beings as themselves. These very ones seen in the entities of sentient beings are the protectors themselves. Why then do I not respect them?
Tebda kubachigu gyunze khares launi nanzo sanjila kubachigi yoras kubachisu ta ani kyavi thatu godi sanjiros ta di ye dawd zabantla tezom nesadi khongi ta lolam gi nekoso ani chik dashin yamjila soba ani zewan yinji chin koni ani nyam thabi simje theda pe ani jesu son ta dagin zeyo botliya tezam tsawni yo maris yinza ta khong ani chik khortaw ani kyurdebi ani khongi pe hachangi ani chede chesagi ta khortaw kyurdes telaya ani ngamsu kubo machina digmarawas.
When this section says that we should respect sentient beings as well, then we begin with the sense of respect that was explained before to the teacher, the Buddha, the Bhagavan. So if we do venerate the Buddha, then we also think of the Buddha beholding all sentient beings, considering all sentient beings with a sense of loving concern, particularly through a practice such as equalizing, exchanging self with others, as one develops an attitude of loving concern for all sentient beings equally. We consider that the Buddha acts for the sake of all these sentient beings, cherishing all those sentient beings, and that being the case, then if we think of the ones in the followers of the Buddha, the ones in the retinue of the Buddha, or the audience of the Buddha, so to speak, then if the Buddha acts for their sake, we need to have a sense of respect to them. So now we're going to look at a commentary for verse 126. It says, there's no doubt that all these migrators are regarded by the Buddhas that possesses compassion as self by way of meditating on equalizing and exchanging self with others. Hence, thus sin and the identity of sentient beings are in the very nature of the protector, and respecting them gives enlightenment. Therefore, why not be respectful? It is appropriate to have faith and be respectful.
Reta sanji gishu ani chede nang de sabi ya ani makuba chebaina sanji lai makuba chik chairo pinanga jigdi mijigi baina ya pena suzu phamari givishin yedi and dindiji gishu jipule ya ani tsachimuchi nyading pen tunrusumjin jibaina ya tela ani chik dugja chebaina tela marab chebaina ani di ani datu suni pigi dagin zingi phamayinja lama givishin bi semya phok thachu phogro asro.
And there is a reason in saying that. If you disrespect those that the Buddha cherished, it is tantamount to disrespecting the Buddha. It's like, if you think about it in relation to your parents or your teachers, suppose that there is a pet that they like. If they have a pet, and you treat that pet very badly, it will also be harmful to them in the sense that they will feel hurt or offended if you treat something that is like that is very dear to the heart.
Rebena Suzulaya, you've been Kim, Simming Lodge, that's Yade, Tundrujigavana, Suzu Tomo, that's Nambi Sandanya Sajiki, and Delia Marabchivana, and Kazus, Samdanya, Samla Pogros, Samla Pogros.
Or similarly, if you have a pet, if you have a dog, or if you have a cat that is very dear to your heart and someone treats it very badly, even if the person is close to your heart, if they treat your pet badly, Geshe feels that it will affect your mind, it would be hurtful or offensive.
Tulaya, Pogiyabati, Yajigatamades. For things that Sanjilaya, and it can tattoo zinting to ruin it, and Simjana Chandu Chiboti. How does Nyanta with Simjana, and it Chambokobatan, and it Robachi, Soporo, and it Kubachi, Ben Masiva, and a kitchen, Shusongas.
That being the case, if you do not treat sentient beings with a sense of care, with a sense of love, if you treat them badly, and these are the sentient beings that are sentient, that the Buddha cherishes, that the Buddha cares for, it would be like disrespecting the Buddha. And the Buddha for us is a consummate object of refuge. So we need to treat other sentient beings with loving kindness, to be helpful as much as we can to sentient beings in general, and particularly to those who are in impoverished situation or those who are in state of need.
There is a niveau Sobogumbi payers, Sobogumbi payers, Dordambatan, pay Shepapan, pay Namran to Dembo. Tambon Dordamban, Dini Tizinship in Shi, Ramde Yanda Dolan, Dinito. Jigden do not say on dignity, get the dark out of dignitas.
Let's look at the next point in the outline. The benefits of cultivating patience are explained towards the end of the chapter in 3 points: the brief presentation explaining the benefits by means of an analogy, and a condensed presentation of the types of benefit. Let's begin with a brief presentation that is found in verse 127. Then verse 127 says, it delights that the Tathagata perfectly accomplishes my own purpose as well. It dispels the suffering of the world, therefore I should always practice it.
Sobokumye, Sobinyam di Yes, Tijin Shabatan, Nishik Tab Chod Kivatian, Sobinyam is. No, the Ramdin Yantapa, Piggy, Namkin Gavi, Combat Juliagi, Tab Yashudi, Sobinyam is. And Jigding with Duma several Chibi, Tabian, Sobinyam is. In the and Sobinyamenti, Chetichipoeti, famous occasion Buddhist.
Here it emphasizes the importance, the great importance of the practice of patience. Since being patient with other sentient beings is a way of making the Buddha's mind be pleased, it is important. Since it is a way, it is a method for transcending sorrow, which means it is a method for attaining the state of nirvana, it is important. Since it is a method for alleviating sufferings and problems in the world, it is important.
And how do the Chabangi, your Tomoman, Konde, Chabangi, any Lolaya, any 소바 때 맞고이나 대신 시합은 이야기 다 규칙도 있는 건 제대로 말아서 차단기 시험을 규지 샘 차단기 시험을 규 차단기 시험을 규이다 아니 요보다 마소나 아니 로샤바이나 아니 르가 이스다 차단기 시험을 규 조디기 아니 대본 바시 마도 아니 기빌레 주변지 용어 말아서 다디 감дел이야 쪼디 아니 조바텐지 조비냠네 된거보다 인자 소비냠네 여바이나 아니 니지콤 야용야 전주생고에 다른 거뭐 산지에 대한 아니 소비냠네 된 용어보다 소바디 대신시바 이식 탑촉 교리스
In one of the verses that we've covered in Shantideva's Guide to Bodhisattva, where Flash spoke of how we relinquish a greater sense of happiness for the price of something that is quite small. So we become focused on something that is short-lived, something that is minute. We forget the bigger picture, the greater type of happiness and well-being. So without practicing patience, this is what will occur. We will focus on something that we can get only in this life, a smaller degree of happiness, and we will relinquish a greater degree of happiness and well-being. And we do that because our mind is under the control of anger and attachment. And when our mind submits to the control of anger and attachment, also our body behaves, we behave in a certain way with our body. We perform physical actions being under the control of anger and attachment. So we end up accumulating negativities and we do not perform virtuous actions. So here, what this chapter teaches is patience. If we practice patience, if we engender compassion, develop bodhicitta, we'll be able to use that as a way of attaining the state of enlightenment at the end. And that will be what pleases the Buddha.
Then, Adirita, Simjanamji never chable, sober chasing, cover chable, beneath, Tejabal never chable, have choy in life. Rangi, you told over chable, Ramdi Yandavan, Yandavan Jubon, have chok, Jendin chable, beneath. Jigdeva Kanji Duma7, Bineto, Tuning Tarchimber, the Davina, Dag Tautu, and it Sobasun Gomber, Binicha was.
The commentary to verse 127 says, to be patient and respectful when harmed by sentient beings. This alone is the supreme method for pleasing the Buddhas. To work for the welfare of others, this alone is the supreme method to accomplish the accumulations in one's own continuum. This alone also clears the sufferings of all sentient beings. Therefore, since it perfects the two purposes, I shall continuously meditate on the three types of patience.
Then even pay a fish about needs. Pay you on the chibi, bedroom town, bed the capital to power shebo. Tamu pay you on the chibi, bedroom, bedroom tendo. Pay me, Bena Jabu Mengashi, Gil Mala Nuchigan. Gil Mingan Rimbota, Nukin Chile Micheti, the teaching my inky, Jabu to the tables.
Then explaining the benefits by means of an analogy is covering 2.5 verses, beginning with the analogy itself, extending over 6 lines. Let's look at this section. It says, for example, should even some of the king's men cause harm to many people, far-sighted men would not retaliate even if they were able to, for they are not alone. The might of the king is their might.
제대로 배시 시위 길이 서 시위 길이 배트서 근데 잡이 민가시기 밤새래 never 치운디 비기 밤새기는 다지 미갸림불라바 타림불라 상우탄 잡종 상우탄 통이 속이 아니 듄디 통이기 다지 잡이 코르도서래야 내는 친 말이스 내는 제바이나 그기 듄디 통이기 미디기 잡종 잡 뽕로들이야 잡을 차기엔자 아니 소소리야 탈도나 종을해야지마도 용금면자 내는 친 말이스
Geshe feels that this verse is quite clear. Suppose that the subjects of the king are being harmed by some people of high position. One that is far-sighted, one that can think long-term in the future, would not retaliate, for they know that if they retaliate towards the people that are close to the king, they will be harmed by in the future.
네. 그때는 배는 야비 콜기 메가시 깨우만보다 내가 제장 치기 깨에 따위 깨우 메장 링부터 콜대다는 내가 친 메장 칠 내가 미세비 내가 친 미니가 콜기 메디 찍고 내가 마인지 야비 수도 디게 트임비 소스 그 결론에 야부연자 디레스
Explaining this analogy, the commentary says, for example, though a few people belonging to the entourage of the king harm many others, the far-sighted people that look at the long-term benefits and harm will not retaliate, even though they can. That they cannot retaliate is not alone just because of the entourage's power alone, but due to the power of the king.
that ten college Islam, niba tennis, Tishin Nishin Yam Chong, Gaya Kid Semicha, the Yevis Mata, two Jedian tables.
That was the analogy. Let's look at the meaning of the analogy in the next 4 lines. So it says, likewise, I should not underestimate weak harmers, for the guardians of hell and the compassionate ones are the army.
There's a tongue and duty, Sinjin Yam Chong, and the Mishibi Mombi Sudingi, and Yam Chong Sogi, that Chabang Jawan Kirchen, and never chew by Nians, and Delia, Nuji Chena, Kabdu Kolda, and Chick. So the soy to get the younger was ra. In a young tea Javloya, and it nearly so matan, and it to jet dembi, and it's Sangela sober, get hamje, tea, and a poroch in the shoe, and did hamjela coverage. Kanjit had to no so like Hora the edge, in the Jinguenza, this shim Tony, and it some genuine Zutilia, never cheat Talia, and it. A
harm doer, being under the control of afflictive states of mind, being under the control of anger and attachment might cause you harm. So we consider that person to be weakened person because they're weakened by their afflictive states of mind. If you retaliate to the harm done to you, then you will be delivered to the guardians of hell. So in that sense, it would have a detrimental effect for you in the future. Not only it will have a detrimental effect on the harm doer, but also yourself will be harmed. And therefore, a smarter approach, a smart person would practice patience instead. Likewise, as in the example, one should not dismiss any humble harmer because they have as their support the ripening fruit of the hell guardians and the displeasure of the compassionate conquerors and their children.
Pele chabardu pava shepanis, Tede mangi Jatumshi, Simjeno, Gorcha, Jabut Dashu Chunaya, Simjim Chevani, Yuman you are kind of, never pitch happens.
We've looked at the analogy and the meaning of the analogy. Let's look at the next point in the outline, which is point C. A condensed presentation of the types of benefit, beginning with the principal effect. Sorry, am I looking at the right point? No, I should be looking at explaining that the reality of it surpasses the analogy, right? So this is what we should be looking at, explaining that the reality of it surpasses the analogy. Let's look at the next 6 lines to begin with. It says, just as the subjects behave towards a fierce king, I should please sentient beings. Even if such a king were to become angry, could he cause the harm of hell, which is what I would have to experience by displeasing sentient beings? The commentary says that first off, because of this, one should please sentient beings like the people fearing the wrath of the king. Even if one gets angry at someone like a king, they do not give the harm of the lower realms, which one will experience as a result of making sentient beings happy. They cannot. And verse 132 says, even if one pleases someone like a king, that what one will attain by pleasing sentient beings, the very enlightenment they cannot offer.
And Simjin Goa Chival Denny, and Simjin Goa Chival Denny, Toby Sanji Kumandi, and Jin Sigmaris, Neverdu, and Simjin Goa Chival Denny, Chongol Mato, and Simjin Goa Machiva, and Yabuta Tachi P, and Sanji Telia, was church in Bedevanados, and it's Simjin Goa Machino, and Sanji Kumato Sigmaris.
You might respect a king, worship a king, make offerings to the king, bow down to them. And yet, without respecting sentient beings, there is no way that you will be able to attain the state of enlightenment. The only way that you will be able to attain the state of enlightenment is through venerating, respecting sentient beings. Even if you make offerings, you bow down, you respect, venerate the king, if you neglect sentient beings, if you disrespect them, there's no way that you will be able to attain enlightenment.
Sanjilaya Chubaku and Chate or Katus Chabania, Simjenla, and Chamba Magumna, and Sanji Kumbadi, and Jabotavati, Sanji, Konima, Jin Tuyachi, Yomaris.
The meaning that is begotten at this section is that if you respect the three jewels, if you venerate the three jewels, make offering to them, and yet you do not cultivate a sense of concern for sentient beings, you will not be able to attain the state of enlightenment. The king here in the analogy is the Buddha. So suppose that you venerate the Buddha, you bow down to the Buddha, you make offering and so forth, and yet you do not cultivate loving kindness to sentient beings. You will not be pleasing the Buddha, you will not be able to attain the state of enlightenment.
아니 심진 상기살이야 지금 탑이 그냥 상기를 이게 처벌피 디체널 디그리스 송문다스 방부 뎀바시도 동화소 이 동화 자와 티 아니 람라틴 토즈 람드 송이야 소 탑의 셰레미 송 탑이 인지된 참바 찬주성을 소버디 탑이 탑라는 메버 디레도스 이 인지의 찬주성이 믹서 조디 아니 냠탑의 심전을 미 인지기고서 대주체도 사무단에 상기 공부 된다니 어디지기 탑 들리지 토니 아니 다음 돈이 더 비슷해 주는 일을 개콘이 더 실행이 손도 되어 된 상기 공부 손이어서
And it is an important point because the Buddha has attained the state of Buddhahood for the sake of sentient beings. And for sentient beings, he practiced for eons and ends, experiencing different difficulties and that was all for the purpose of sentient beings. So then, if we want to be led to the state of Buddhahood, what do we need to do? Is it sufficient to just make offerings to the Buddha? That was not sufficient when we can see that simply by looking at the teachings that the Buddha gave, teachings on the Four Truths, beginning with true suffering, then true origins, teaching true cessations, and then true paths. And when the Buddha taught true paths, he spoke of the need to develop the paths of method and wisdom. Method being compassion in the mind of enlightenment, and wisdom, which is the wisdom of selflessness. So the method side is focused on the development of compassion in bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, which are observing sentient beings which are in an impoverished or weakened state of being. So for their end, we seek the state of Buddhahood. Through using compassion and the mind of enlightenment, we strive at the state of Buddhahood. And together with that, as the Buddha said, we need to develop the wisdom that understand the way that things are, the wisdom of reality, the wisdom of selflessness. This is what the Buddha taught in relation to the Four Truths.
Shending samba kanji shending samba ani rande le dan shending tending yawa sonda kiza tangan zu karchi go islam bet doshot sangi jinju yubala sangi gomba da bet doshot nganzu lega chion digi ani chi susu kari tuba de pena da chi chujo lega do jiya ko son tu sun jaba ina chi ani kari cheba ina 수수 메시지 상당히 간지 수수 운동만 말도 아니 젬펜을 상당 투문다 디베 탑교래다스라
The attainment of a state of Buddhahood is for the sake of liberating sentient beings from suffering, which means that it is involved with developing the altruistic intention, compassion and loving kindness to sentient beings. This is what needs to be developed in order to attain the state of Buddhahood for the sake of liberating sentient beings from suffering. So then, what then do we need to do, and what are we doing in actual sense, in practical way? Practical way, we behave in an opposite way. We think first and foremost of ourselves, what can we get from this life? For example, so we might appear to be a religious practitioner. We might, in some sense, surrender a body, speech, and mind to the practice or to the objects of refuge, and yet, in terms of our orientation, in terms of our priority, we might still be focusing on what we can get out of it for ourselves in this life, for example. So then looking into such attitudes that we might have. So we study something, we study a particular text or particular system, still in thinking that we can become more successful in this life if we do that. We might have a better reputation, a bigger name. We might even teach the Dharma in order to get some gain, in order to be rewarded financially, in order to have a better reputation, to become more famous. We might construct representations of body, speech, and mind, statues, and the like, again, for the same reason, thinking that that will give us a better reputation, will become more popular or more famous, which means that we might engage with all these Dharma activities, and yet our orientation would be this lifetime. That would be our priority. What we can get out of this, in terms of this life.
And Sunday December Chimbo, and Chanju Sambala Sova, one Shanty Tunding into and Nanju Chajutelin, Tobaina, and Nanju Yam, Nimachi, Dinyamatunis, and the Chabas that D. Mayon magic, and Susu Soko does rock.
And also, when we think about it in terms of those that really seek the state of Buddhahood, Mahabodhisattvas, those bodhisattvas abiding on the great ground. If we continue to behave in this way, Geshe reckons that even those great bodhisattvas would be disinclined to spend some time with us. So this is our own creation. This is our own doing.
The Sumba pay Namdan do the temple debut so Tunchi debut, Nami debut. Tambu debut Simjin Gully Choi, Mao Sangi Drip Dasho.
Then we come to point C, which is a condensed presentation of the three types of benefit: the principal effect, the visible effects, and explaining the fully ripened effect. Now we begin with the principal effect.
Teda Simjin Goa Chebal Deni Kari Yungusina, Maumba Sangi Tobada Yatambalos, T. Mase Roslavata, T. Mase, and Tandi Chalenia, and Kevsama Shuch. Yoris.
So what is the principal effect? It says, let alone my future attainment of Buddhahood. That is the principal effect. Principal effect is my future Buddhahood, but it's not limited to just that. There are also other effects that will come from that, which comes from, they come from pleasing sentient beings.
Simjin Goa Chibali Chong, Jeru Maumbana, Sanji Dribi, Payla Samni, Simjin Gushi, Soba Gomba, Soba Gomripa, Tasho, Sin DC negative regular turning Sobogon Bow. 10 tether, self 10 tether. Salkis, Nama Kachiki, Sanki Tobaka, Rishi Shochiki, Chabal, Rigi, Sydney Tonjik in Jebu Toba, Tanaya, Chimin Jebu Shinduko, Sangi Tobakatis, Sangi long division and never Rivito mission. Shinduko the Cubi, 20 Jews Toba, Shindachino, Gonsheba, Timicheros, Takus on that.
The commentary to these two lines that say, look at the future Buddha that is attained as a result of pleasing sentient beings. Look at how it is appropriate to please sentient beings and be patient with them by contemplating the benefits of enlightenment that arises as a result of pleasing sentient beings. This is also saying that it is suitable to meditate in patience in relation to the results ripening in this and the latter life. Although the meaning is clear, an earlier proponent says, since it is difficult to cognize Buddha, it is unsuitable to interpret the meaning of for the moment as live it. Although the phenomena of this life are easy to cognize, the extremely hidden future results are hard to cognize than a Buddha. A Buddha can be cognized by depending on reason, without depending on quotations, but that the very hidden meaning can only be cognized subsequently to this accords with the view of all great pioneers.
Reta Pigi Sanjib Jabadi Rigvi Tugulis. Tadas Sobokomaliteni, Simjali Sobokomaliteni, Mamba Rang Sanji Kobatobati, Manto Rigvi Tugulis. Hinaya Sobokomaliteni, Mambalayata, didn't Dinjon Sagi, and Shinko Ritazo. And San Gileja, Topakawati, and Zovinyam and
So what is this section saying? Geshe reckons that it might be saying that you can cognize the Buddha. It is easy to cognize the Buddha. It is also easy to cognize that through your practice of patience, you will attain the state of Buddhahood in the future. What is extremely hidden to us are the very specific results of this particular type of patience. So it is more difficult than realizing the Buddha, more difficult than cognizing the Buddha is to know very precisely in a detailed way what will be the result of this practice of patience.
Rabena Sangi Rigvidu said, Sangi Rigvidu to the Karisana, Sangi said, Numumba the Shiji Drivi, and Pasha the Cheba Sebi in Chalaya, Sangi's Lagoros. That Numumba Pasha the Cheba the Segi Yadamedi, Numum Sava Danzindi, and Loshi Bata, and Lower Jimba. Di Chuni Rigvit of the Truyoras, Tinza, and Numusegi Yabati, Chuni Rigvit of the Truyanza. And Sanji review to this. Inaya Sobogumbal in Calanian, Dijon Sagi, and review to know loyal debating and Zobi pay Yoris.
Chene Ripa Kare, so we can establish, we can prove by reasoning the state of Buddhahood. In that sense, we say that it's easy to cognize the Buddha, to establish Buddhahood through reasoning. So how do we go about and do that? Well, the state of Buddhahood is the elimination of all faults and the development of all positive qualities. This is what Buddhahood is, right? The elimination of all faults and the achievement of all positive qualities. So in terms of the elimination of all faults, we refer to the elimination of the two sets of obscurations, cognitive obscurations and afflictive obscurations. And we can establish that we can eliminate the two sets of obscurations. We can establish that through reasonings. We can prove that it is possible because we can look at faults such as anger and attachment and recognize that there are wrong consciousnesses. And using reasons of nature, we can also establish that such stains, such faults are adventitious, that they are not ingrained within the mind. And therefore, using reasons, we can prove that Buddhahood, which is the elimination of all faults, is tenable. So that can be realized through reasoning, but harder than that is to prove or to realize that the result of this specific practice of patience will bring about this particular result. That is more difficult than establishing Buddhahood through reasoning.
이번 통주기 되버렸어. 답비기 라.
When Geshe says that the result of this specific practice, is it this practice in general, the specific practice in general, or is it this practice in relation to specific time, specific person, specific event?
All right. So when Geshe was speaking about the difficulty in establishing that through this practice, the result would be such and such, is Geshe speaking about this practice, or this practice with that person in that particular time, in that particular event, and so forth. Dila Sovadi and Nyamlin Dilaten, Jebodende Yumbi Res, the Duke, Jik Duke, Kavores, and the Soimba. Jensen Nyamlin D, Amena, Sobadisia, the Chinan Sobag in Yamla Lagirway, Amena, Kansa Dilatene, Kab Dilaten, Netsu Dilaten, Soba Nyamlin Chewaina. Kabdila Jebudara Yongires Didu Kavores, Chedawachi Labores.
지단아도 서비 냠내는 때니 통추스 여가 근데 사지디는 요구도스 통추스 여비기 아니 제부 마무슈저스 아니 통추스 마키고 나서 꼭 못티비게 제부 마무 여레스 라고다 만당한테 서비 냠내는 때니 제부 딘종거 세디 리그 싸우니 조에 여마스 라고 말다스 까우콜라 가시 리뷰도 또 가시 리뷰도 마투바 아니 신도 코드 키비 체마모 용그레스.
As we follow the outline of this section, it says that when you look at the practice of patience, there are some visible effects of the practice of patience. It's not that you can never know what would be the result of patience, because some results are visible. And yet, the effects of patience are not limited just to what is visible to us, because there are also many other effects of patience that cannot be seen at the moment. And also, it's hard to really cognize them through reasoning, and yet they will be experienced in the future.
Pena 통주야. 당한도 pena. 그래서 안 치기라 나해디 안 치기라 서버야고 공부해서 마상만 가오치기도 하스. 안 치기라 안 샤마들라 안 치기라도 제거도 하스.
Like, for example, Geshe says, when we refer to anichuki, most people say anichukila. La is the sense of, is a particle of respect or endearing someone. Now, so Geshe says that that's because you're a good practitioner of patience. You're known for being patient, so people also perceive you in a particular way. So, this particular la is not added to many people, but we do it since many people use that.
그래도 니는 성도할 때 통주기 되버리스 센딩일라 빠친다 차도 이렇지만 하스라.
So just to illustrate what Geshe was getting at in terms of having visible effects and also having other effects, the next point in the outline is the visible effects of the practice of patience covered by the last two lines in verse 133. And in looking at this verse, it says, why do I not see that there will be great glory, fame, and happiness in this life? These are the visible results of the practice of patience.
그래다 수술이야 소비냠이 여봐이나 배니 미티 미스 때는야 아니 밥차고 아니 지금 시신 들어와 아니 식제들 된 거지. 님비 타고지. and medicine delayna, and dash in given George, Yungris, Tunjula Yungris.
It is something that is visibly noticeable, that someone that has a good practice of patience is someone that has a calm demeanor, someone that has this spacious attitude about them. They enjoy greater reputation and glory in this life, and they also have happiness in this life. This is something that is visible for those who are practitioners of patience.
Zobal Tumi, Chu, Sindinila, Hosum, Punto Javi, Chevatan, Yembi Travasan, Deshin given you. Shin Mountain, Yana Sunjin Goa, Bever Chavos.
Also in this life, there are seen results that arise from patience, such as the glory of increased perfections, being well regarded, and happiness. Why does one not see this? Therefore, one strive in making sentient beings happy. One should strive, making sentient beings happy.
대상한도 심진 거 치고 해 백히죠. 학년도 지금 닝콜로 여비. 아니 같이 차르다서 거치 맞는 닝콜로 미디다 인지ven이 만든 거치 도지. 제고다 라칸 konzekhashi kalishut and pena chutes singadroga na long san shut kushe ta loktes marena pe shut pe nona and gestes marena shut pe keja jismela de just la kana patili dojra ngan test is the test so go by na ani mother ngazudele ya ani chawanya ani islam se de and the Simadi Lanson and a long time Kaya Deati and Conjusang on the base in Sambuchavios of this rock.
When we think of this practice of patience, we need to, in general, we need to please sentient beings, to make sentient beings happy, but it's important also that we take it to heart with those around us, that we do it with those around us, because you might think that I'm pleasing sentient beings or I'm making sentient beings happy, and you think of those that are far away from here. So you think of doing it with, for example, wild animals or those that live in the forest and so forth. And in so doing, you sometimes mistreat those around you. So it's really important that you start with those that are in your close surrounding. It's like, for example, Geshe says that we live here, and sometimes when we experience difficulties in the infrastructure, with a slight thing, we get completely agitated. Now, if we have just briefly a shortage of water, some people become really agitated. If the power goes off, or if there's some electricity problem, we might get really annoyed. If the gas finishes, if we run out of gas, then that also becomes an emergency. So Geshe spoke of, with someone, a maintenance guy, who might be that person. And the person was saying that suddenly it's really hard. It's like as soon as there is a slight problem in water, in gas, and electricity, people go completely out of balance. Look at Milarepa, Japsuchi, which means I go for refuge. So really, Geshe said that when we think of the practice of patience, we should start with, and also with pleasing sentient beings, we should start with those in our close surrounding.
And that
really, if we are speaking about attaining something that is great in the great scheme of things, and yet we're incapable of waking up with sometimes trivial things around us, whatever we talk about, what we speak about is just empty words.
지도면은 로고만 계속만 감정.
Geshe recalls that conversation that he had with that person. And he says that really, not Milarepa, no, he needed no water, no electricity, no gas.
킹거는 안슬라 피기 갈수지. 그치 최세도 남나도지. 레도지 안슬 성장 챙기면 되더라. 간직 실수해야 되는 전당 노마디가야 아니 테스강한 좀 랑산 베디 아니 도마버티 아니 계속 두자시에 거지. 차고로서피
Or we might say it in jest, but really there's something for us to think about. There's some hidden advice for us in these interactions, because it might seem to us that we're going in the right direction, but still we get really irritated. We become red-faced. We become really angry sometimes with just slight situations occur.
된다 콘서 남주 통운디에 세뱅이도 직 역도 시에면 상도 데리도 설뱅이 면도 상서 가고라라 남주 통해야 직 세나 유지도 차원 뺏사그라서 하고
네 담보들가 제가 보통 맞습니다.
콘주 남주 통운 남주 통운 역도 시에면 속도시 담에 남주 통운디 세뱅이도 차금에도 상서
So, and Geshe says that in thinking about the conversation that Geshe had with that guy, then Geshe is wondering whether they approach us with a sense of trepidation, thinking that may they not give me problems today, may they not scold me, may they not get angry. It's a bit embarrassing, isn't it?
Into that, and Sazu Chigudas, Chigudas. And shooting really a young Martin, bringing on two young so give Penatachi Kanga Dingy, the Manchi Kanga Cheval Denny, non some Yungudas, in the Tsultrim and Kanga di Nyong Drag have she to mother. The Zulia 6 Temple Magi Ganga, Posto Ganga, Posto Sevina, and on the
So really, we should think about these points and at least make our best to improve our reaction to certain situations, particularly when we consider sometimes the way that people gravitate to this place, come to this place. We and also others come to this place in recognizing that there are some difficulties that we experience, and we want to work out with this. We want to work out those difficulties. So our goal is to reduce those difficulties, to reduce problems. So if we react to a situation in which there is some tightness of mind, in which there is tightness of mind, in making mind become more uptight, more tight, more closed, we're not really doing a good service to ourselves and others. This is not the reason that we came here, that we came here as a group to look at ways that could reduce or solve some of the difficulties and problems that we have.
That's somebody naming Jerusalem. Sigje Tamad Chagos, naming Jeru Carriers, Sobocombo, naming Jeru Carriers.
Anyway, the next point in the text is the fully ripened result of the practice of patience. Let's look at the fully ripened result. Dila mechigi dila kala maresena. Zadan neso dendeshitayo mare di nima tsawo kabla esi chola drona mato shemba zada mendusa. Yeah, Olaf was stating nothing is really an emergency unless the aircon goes down on a hot day. Well, Geshe says that it's not wholly sure about it. I'm totally convinced.
이 남는 되고 골치 수빈 제소가 내매 받다 차바이 신비는 소가는 콜로지 디지털스.
Anyway, let's look at the ripened result of this practice. Looking at verse 134, it says, while in cyclic existence, patience causes beauty, freedom, and sickness. Freedom from sickness and pain. I'll read it again. While in cyclic existence, patience causes beauty, freedom from sickness and pain. Because of this, I shall live for a very long time and win the prosperous pleasures of the world-turning kings.
그래 단지단이 오만주가 인상소 서비제션라가 서버고말 때니 아니 친디지 아니 수상원다 수제발라 소버디야 아니 서비기 남용 제브리스 소요에서 dinhi tanda chikpara wasra.
Geshe reckons that there is also a reference to that in Chandrakirti's Sacrament to the Middle Way, which says that from patience you experience beauty in the sense that your physical form is appealing, nice to behold.
Tereda liza nanzu ji dizu pe kichunda dizu kyavsan shu diredas. Sobo komal din dan zewu chagiano nanzu zezo uched dan roso shu tanga dasin sta dedi zezo uched roso shu sta ani kongko shu se on pi roso tang kangalo chola doshe. Misu kangi inji tongboda kongko shu se on keran karu kar chu yobani karu kar ta yobani gencha min zewu tongboda sro. 당가 초왔다는 거지. 그래서 네 서봐야 부지와는 그래서 찌에 먹어. 내 참마를 빼지. 아니 이동하지. 차겨. 그래서 약수디 서봐야 됐어.
It's really good to think of these points. Such, for example, thinking of this statement that from the practice of patience comes beauty or beautiful form. In general, when we look at how much money, how much expenses do we put into maintaining a nice physical form, a beautiful physical form? We spend so much on that, and yet when we get angry, it is completely destroyed. We might be wearing nice makeup and jewelry or try as much as possible to have a beautiful form, and yet when we get angry, no one finds it appealing. It completely destroys that image that we were trying to portray. No one will see you as beautiful or appealing with a face that is contorted by anger. So, therefore, when we look at what we do in this life, what we want to get, what we want to achieve, then it is really important to make sure that we do not give way to anger, that we cultivate patience.
아니 가시베 첼야 동나이니 안 고춘중이 바이냐 직 제조도 근디 쳐야 니 직 동나지에니 가시하고 쇼드는 도스라 가시하고 쇼드는 그 뺑안 통디기베 and same thing and 그바이도 도스라.
There's some people that do not focus from young age on their physical appearance, in a sense that for them it's not become the highest priority. Geshe says that when we look at it from our point of view, this is something that we need to appreciate. This is something that we really need to appreciate. Someone that from young age does not consider the physical appearance to be the most important thing.
And the other law saying that 콜 빅시 세비 숙제시 콜포숨 소가 소다 내내버다 작바체버 제바 이 신비 유린 소다 콜규 야볼소 대와지시 갸체버 소건교로 도나 초시 제와도 기비치로 소시와도 마메시 민데버소 민데 비처럼 시버 진 이니모 네버체버 제민이버 동한주 미저 샘네도 네버도 출 후수도 시를 있진 네버신 네비 zobogongi tanjugi te yobala beber chawus tanjugi te 대한다 댐바로 이게 배바 차오 진소 원리 뭐
The commentary to this verse says, also, while circling one attains a beautiful form, the samsaric perfections, good health, and great reputation. Through that one will have a long life. One will also have the extensive and vast happiness of a will-turning king. In short, having recognized opposing factors such as proclivity for anger, intimidation from virtuous dhammas, non-wish or aspiration for virtuous dhammas, and so forth, one then relies on their antidotes, which are the patience that does not think anything from harm, the mind that is not harmed by suffering and abides in its natural state, and the patience strongly abiding in the wish for the Dhamma due to discriminating awareness.
진소 개와가와 공나양 공주 매진 정보 제변을 양다용 소비도 기티 초위고고 조스 미와 디비스 제바.
The summarizing verse for this chapter says, although one meditates on the virtue of generosity and delight for eons, they are destroyed by the fire tongue of anger. Therefore, one needs to generate the force of patience again and again, and not give anger any chance.
레벨세는 전주쌤이 저번을 주고 소바템을 시샤워 때 레오 주고 전주쌤이 저번을 주고 야센 남시 야센 주고 시샤워 소바템이 레오 주고 제와오스.
Now, the final explanation of this chapter explains the name of the chapter. It says, this is the commentary in the 6th chapter called The Perfection of Patience, from the commentary on the introduction to the actions of Bodhisattvas called The Ancients for the Children of the Conquerors.
대단한 비처스니 대단 믹스슈야스 기능다 간지 소바디 내가 전부 슈즈라 아니 지 소비기 톤마 송디게 아니 지 심진 그 냠타비 심진 하우든지 지 차단 모습이 상황이 결정이 아니 심진을 소바공고야디 리베 톤마 모드존베 야고시도 왔어. 소주들이 공지 때도 들어봐나. 아니 균생 예비 톤이 달아야 그밖에 없지. 야시가다 뭐 연구도 왔어.
Patience, as explained in this chapter for us, becomes a vital point, particularly when we consider sentient beings which are in a pitiful state, being under the control of anger, attachment, and so forth. The way to practice patience with those sentient beings which are governed by anger, attachment, and so forth, here is approached through reasons. That should be our approach to dealing with sentient beings. It should be a rational or reasoned approach to that. And if this is the way that we proceed with our practice of patience, that can result well. No. So we finished with the patience chapter. After that, we will study the chapter on Geshe. But I think we still have a couple of weeks, right? 2 or 3 weeks? Two. All right. Let's see how far we can go with that. So, justification, praise.
So we'll do it in English or?
그래서 진짜 중요한 일단 발상이야.
J'ai appêché dans ta check list.
그래서 이런 걸 해야 될 상황이. 그래서 뒤집지는 그냥 지금 있는 거나 많게 오는 있어. 야. 그러니까 사실 있는 거나 진짜 중요한 거 정해서 봐도 그런 상황이라 많게 오는 있어.
So we have a couple of weeks officially to the end of this module. Geshe was wondering if we have anything planned for the rest of December. I think that we have a Bodhisattva.
We have the Bodhisattva retreat towards the end, and just on the weekend after, after the big definition, then we have discovering Buddhism, which will come on.
Yeah. So we have a couple of things happening, but then in terms of weekdays, it seems that we don't have much going on. So let's see how we go with this announcement couple day. Yeah. So let's see how we go with these 2 weeks. Geshe reckons that it was planning to do something in December, but it seems that now with situation of COVID-19 being very fluid, things changing, who knows who will get it, who will go into quarantine or isolation and so forth. So to cut things short, it seems that we're still going to be here. Let's assess the situation. If we have free time and we can add a week or two, go even till the middle of December, and it's not like 40 degrees, let's do it.
Yeah.
Yes, we said 40 degrees.
Sorry? No, that's my addition.
Okay. Due to this virtue, may I quickly become a Buddha, lead all transmigrated beings without exception to that state. May the precious supreme Buddhahood and love born arise, may that this be not decline but increase more. In this land, filled by snowy after the source of all happiness and good, powerful change as it tends to get so please bring my into the samsara. You are whole, secure as my way, says the powerful thereof. Sustaining, preserving, and spreading much mercy, victorious doctrine. Who must again publishes my gifts and prayers, honoring the three jewels, protect myself and others, your disciples, please, please, zeal. Oh, this other announce. Announce his holiness.
Sorry?
Announce his holiness.
So there's His Honest conference, happiness and His Honest participates today in the conference, happiness and tolerance from Vajrayana Institute. It's going to be at 1:30 today. So people at home can approach that online.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you're interested in His Honest talk, it's at 1:30. Replaces a discussion group time. So you can just search for happiness in its causes and make your way.
Or dalailama.com/live.
Or dalailama.com/live. Dila signature olabildi. Konu sundu şamudun tavırı çizen derinci tamamen çeyala bir gyanı bu çünkü söyleyeceğiz.
Geshe and Geshe Samton and Dekila, Reprola, they'll be on screen.
Very
His Holiness.
Yani geziniman sanzonanda dostikçe çemadu kayırma. Nodinanda regula.
Yeah, Geshe thought that before that we can also put together an event like that. Now, why wouldn't be able to do it? Now, of course, this is kind of now it's short announcement, but in the future maybe we can also have an event.
Yeah.